Well, this is how we be now. You gonna go? Hey Nan, I am sure that you are aware that you've watched my other videos and you know that I moved from Tasmania to the Big Island to follow a dream. Yeah, about that. Before Lord Coronamort decided to poke his ugly head out, I got to go to Disney World for 2 whole weeks in December last year, and it was amazing. I got to ride Rise of the Resistance before the Rise of Social Distance. Yay! While I was preparing for this holiday, I discovered that there is a difference between cosplay and being inspired by your favorite character. I personally don't have the guts to cosplay, and I really truly admire those that do. But yeah, turns out I'm a chicken. Not really a cosplay, not really a bound. I'll be doing something kind of in between. I will be creating a dress inspired by my favorite Disney princess, Captain America. I picked up this hideously stereotypical 1950s dress pattern, which will really help accentuate that Americana flair. All right, let's see what we're working with here. So this dress has got a round collar, then ruching over the chest with a waistband and a full circle skirt. The general idea is that I'll have a blue collar, a red and white striped bodice, and then a blue skirt to give it that classic Captain America look. The first thing you're going to want to do is have a look on the back of the paper pattern at the sizing guide. Now, this may be a shock, but whoever writes these guides is a freaking idiot. Now, I knew that I wanted to get that red and white stripe in the front bodice, and I knew that I was going to have to sew those pieces together. While I was looking at fabric, they did have red and white stripe fabric, but they were really narrow stripes, and that wasn't what I was going for. I did not give this as much thought as I should have, and while I thought I measured it, I didn't really. I just kind of went, oh yeah, she'll be right if they're kind of as fat as the pieces, and she'll work, and it did not. Considering I come from a STEM background, I am not proud of how long this took me to figure out. There was a little bit of panic sewing happening here, so what I did was I cut out the strips, then I panic sewed them together, then I checked and made sure that my pattern fit, and it only just did. Then I felt confident going ahead that I would get it right, which I didn't, but that's fine. Now I know it looks like I'm being real scientific here with the whole pinning and cutting thing, but like later on, I'm pretty sure I don't show it, but I absolutely had to redo this bit because I got it wrong. I'm only showing you this cutting out bit because there's a really funny bit that's about to come up. Just wait for it. It's coming. And there it is, kitten bowling. Just in case you haven't had enough of my cat playing with the pattern that I am currently cutting out, here she is playing with some scraps. In case you can't tell, I'm the kind of person who just kind of does stuff and then thinks about it later. So when I cut out the armhole facing, I didn't realize that it would be on the red and white portion of the dress. What I did was I cut out a blue section and then found out that I didn't have enough red and white left over to replace it. What I've done is I've sewn it in place and then I've sewn the seam to the blue section. What this is going to do is the same as what happens when you install a collar and you sew down the seam. It stops the fabric from rolling back out and around, and people will hopefully not be able to see that blue fabric when I'm wearing the dress. I then gathered the top of the bodice. Now, I didn't like this the first time I did it, but I didn't film it the second time. What I ended up doing is I ended up sewing 2 rows of basting stitches and then pulling both of them. Then I basted the collar on and then I sewed it again. So I wasted quite a lot of thread doing this, but at the same time, I feel like it turned out a whole lot better. Also, if you think I'm a little bit extreme on the pins, you're probably right. So here I am attaching the lining to the collar. Now, don't ask me what happened with those 3 little loops at the start, because honestly, I've lost the footage and I can't remember what I did, but I'm pretty sure it wasn't right to begin with anyway. They're just hanging out there until I fix it later. Whenever you're doing a top stitch, as you do on the collar to sew the rest of it down, there is one very important rule that you need to remember. Lengthen your stitch. I forgot to do this the first time and I broke the second very important rule that you need to remember. Never unpick it. With 2 layers of basting stitches, I gathered the boob area and began to attach it to the belly area. And then I noticed that I had made a mistake and worked to fix it. Now, if you've ever made bias tape, you'll know that you need to have your fabrics line up 1.5 centimeters back from where they join. Now, I didn't do that, and it becomes apparent later on the dress when you do see it finished. However, I really don't care, and I think it looks all right, so we're just keeping it as it is. So now it is actually ready to be attached and then sewn together, straight through the middle of the 2 layers of basting stitches. Next, I sewed the center front pieces together, and I sewed the side seams from the top down to the top of the general pocket area and from the bottom of the general pocket area down. Then I started to attach my pockets. I did the exact same thing where you sew the seams over to the inside piece, and this is to stop the pockets from rolling out. I also made my pockets way too small, like bloody tiny. Honestly, I'm pretty sure that all I can keep in there is a few bits of loose change, and even there, I can't get it back out. Then I sewed the skirt and the bodice together. I feel like that bit is, you know, just part and parcel of making a dress. This is the bit where I prove that I will do absolutely anything to avoid hand stitching. If I hand stitch something, you know that it has to be hand stitched. So this part of the pattern says, fold the inside lining over and iron it down. Then what you need to do is hand stitch it to the hem of the skirt while pressing all of the seams inwards. And I absolutely pressed that sucker down with like a couple of millimeters over the seam. Then I have pinned it within 1 inch of its life and just decided to do the good old-fashioned stitch in the ditch. This took me an entire 10 minutes just to stitch it down, and it was so worth it not to hold a needle in my hand. Then I stitched in the zipper and closed up the back seam. I also attached 3 buttons to the top, which I had to do by hand. Finally, I hemmed the skirt, and I have no idea if I did this the right way for a circle skirt, but you know what? I'm gonna call it the right way for me. If I were to make this dress again, there are a couple of things that I would do differently. First of all, I would not use these weird loops for the back. I ended up just safety pinning it together because the loops and the buttons do not work. The next thing you can see is on the sides. This is where I didn't line up my seams. It doesn't really bother me as this is kind of under the armpit and around the back. If I were a perfectionist, I would totally go back and redo this bit here. The top of the waistband here is a little bit funny. It kind of lacks shape and it goes up when it should be flat. I would also alter that and bring it in a little bit to make it a bit more flattering. And the very last thing that I would do is that I would add a shelf bra to the top section. 1, this adds a really nice lining to it. 2, it feels like it gives you a nice warm hug. And 3, that keyhole is in a really bad spot if you happen to wear dark bras.